Hello Internet, today's going to be another August wrap-up revolving around the NEWTS readathon. Today's subject is going to be History of Magic, so the prompts are as followed. Acceptable was to read a book that you thought would fit well in the Hogwarts library. Here I read Sands of Nezra. This is book 4 in the Adventurers Wanted series by M.L. Foreman. This series is about a young boy who is a wizard and a warrior, and I think that kind of fits into the wizarding realm. Plus it has a lot of weird magical creatures and magical things happening in the course of the story. Because, we're in a fantasy land. This is sort of a portal fantasy where a young boy is just walking around in Earth 1, goes into an adventurer shop, goes to Earth 65, where it is a fantasy land filled with all sorts of crazy things, and he becomes an adventurer, and he learns that he's a wizard. So in this 4th book, he goes to a land of Nezra because he is called by one of his friends to come quick because they know he is a powerful wizard, and they really desperately need his help. Now there's an evil group of evil magician people who are kind of trying to destabilize the land of Nezra and to outlaw magic and portray it as something evil. So Alex kind of has his work cut out for him because he has to save the prince, get the prince back on his proper throne, and antagonize too many people. We meet a lot of fascinating characters, a lot of fascinating creatures, like a giant snake as portrayed on the cover of the book. Overall, it was just a lot of fun. I think M.L. Foreman's writing, or at least with the Adventurers Wanted series, there's nothing too strenuous, too complex. It's just a good time. It's really relaxing. If you like fantasy, you're gonna like it. It's a chill time. It's calm. It's relaxing. There's nothing to make you tense. You're just gonna have a good time, enjoy yourself. I like it. It's therapeutic just to have a book that's just nice to read. It's a good time. I am still kind of pissed that the series is only going to end after book 5, when there are definitely a lot of plot questions that have yet to be resolved, because there are a lot of things that come up in this book and in other books that I'm just like, boy, why you gotta go and have that stroke? No, you have no control over it, but you know what? Still sad about it. Still bitter. I'm still bitter. The second prompt was for Exceeds Expectations. Read a book that was published more than 5 years ago, and I read Ghost Night by Cornelia Funke. I've had this on my shelf forever. Cornelia Funke was a author that I read a lot of as a child, so I decided to buy this book a couple years ago. I finally read it. I don't know when it was written. I know it was more than 5 years ago. This book is freaking old. Probably early 2000s, I think it was written. I looked it up to make sure that I was fulfilling the prompt. I just don't bother to remember the year. This is about... Okay. I had a whole different synopsis in mind when I originally heard about this book, but the actuality is this is about a boy who ends up having to go to an boarding school out in English countryside, but England has tons of castles everywhere, so of course the boarding school is in a castle. So he goes to this boarding school, and it turns out that his family line, there is a ghost that has a vengeance against it and wants to murder him. So he is trying to survive a ghost murderer trying to murder him, so he calls upon a ghost knight to protect him, and he makes this friend, so it's him and his friend, and them running away from Ghost and getting a ghost knight to protect them. There wasn't really anything complex about this story. I feel like the ghost knight showed up in the first few chapters. The ghosts come to terrorize him. His friend's like, hey, why don't we call on this ghost knight to protect you? The ghost knight protects him, and then the kid becomes the ghost knight's squire for a little bit, and as his squire he goes on a mission to help the ghosts move on. It was good. It was a book that I read. It was good. It's fascinating. My synopsis, I didn't think it took place in like a contemporary realm, because this definitely takes place in modern times. I thought it took place in a fantasy realm, and that his friend was going to be the ghost, like this girl that he makes friends with. I thought she was a ghost. She's not. She's flesh and blood. So like when I first started reading it, I was like, wait, do they think he's talking to himself because only he can see ghosts? And it was like, no, he's talking to a real life girl. I was like, wow, how so disappointing. Because I always love when like characters are talking to something that's only visible to them, but like in a sort of semi-public situation, so everyone kind of looks at them like, oh, you crazy? Because I think it's hilarious. I think the situations in general are hilarious. I don't know why my humor is strange, but the book was decent and it fulfilled the prompt. And then the last prompt was for outstanding, and that prompt was to read a book that had 400 pages or more, and this I read Albrecht's Tomb, the third book in the Adventurers Wanted series. In this, Alex goes on an adventure. He was actually given this adventure, and one of his dwarf friends is the leader, and their goal is to go and find the tomb of a ancient dwarf legend, and he has like a ring in Albrecht's tomb that helps them find mines and stuff, so that the dwarfs can have a better economy, because the dwarfs are, all their mines are going empty, so they need to find this ring. So Alex goes on an adventure, and Alex finds out that he's even more OP than ever. I have a fondness for characters that are insanely OP. I just do. That has never been an issue for me, having OP characters. As long as they're compelling characters, I don't care if they have like godlike powers. Frankly, they just have to be compelling. I just think Alex is like a pretty sweet kid, right? So I like his powers, and he finds out like even more stuff, like, oh man, like he's not the chosen one, okay? That's the thing. Like, if you're reading the Adventurers Wanted series, Alex is like, the story of Alex is like the story of like Gandalf, like how Gandalf was as a kid. Not as much of an asshole, but that's probably because he's still young and pretty like a nice, kind person. But definitely the story of the super powerful wizard friend that you're gonna have. This is a story of Merlin as a kid, and he's not hot-headed at all. Not really. He does have some hot-headed tendencies, but not like that much. Basically, the Adventurers Wanted series so far has, well, as it's always going to be now, because ML Foreman's not going to be writing any more books, but it's just like the wizard story. It's just about how the wizard was when he was young, and then of course like he has like 50 different powers, and he's sort of kind of always going to be the chosen one because he's the wizard, but he's never going to like take the power because he's honorable and noble. And like in this book we find out even more about his backstory and his bloodline and stuff, and it's like, how much more OP can you get, Alex Taylor? I hope more, because this is fairly entertaining. As I say with all the Adventurers Wanted books, they're just really calm, exciting, they're really interesting, they're just fun reads that you can have a good time with. They're not strenuous, there's nothing difficult, they don't get your heart pumping or beaten or anything, but you take a deep breath and you smell in the fresh air of fantasy and beauty and occasional battles, and you have a good time. It's just a good time, always a good time. I'm definitely sad that there's not going to be any more books, because I love a book that just gives me a good time, but still bitter. I do want to ask you guys, do you guys have like any books that you would say is just a good time? Like, because obviously not getting any more from this author, so what books would you recommend that is just gonna be a good time? I'm not talking about like, I don't want anything like complex, I don't want anything strenuous, I don't want anything like hard-hitting that's gonna make me super emotional. I just want a good time book. If you get what I'm saying, just a book that you have a good time with. That's it. That's all I want. A good time. Good time book. Alright. I don't know how many times I can say good time, but have a good time and click all those bunnies down below, and goodbye, Internet.